In the middle of the two mishalim of the Pardes regarding the hislapshus of the oir in Keli. And the objective in this mishalim, in this whole discussion, is to identify and explain how is it that there are many different madregas in oir, even though oir in essence is a atzmi and it doesn't have madregas. There are different madregas in oir, and that is talking about the effect of oir, the gilui of the oir, all the way to the point where oir can be mislabish. What's called mislabish mamash b'hakelim. Mislabish mamash means that it actually functions in the limits of the kelim, and at the same time it remains oir, which is completely remote from kelim. So we had the mashal of from the Pardes, the mashal of the gavan, or the color of the keli, how it is affecting the water that in the keli, which we discussed quite extensively. And now we go to the next mashal. The line begins she-hare, she-hare.
Just before we start, excuse my ignorance, who was the Pardes?
The Pardes was a makubal right before the Arizal.
Okay.
All right. So, as I said, the line begins she-hare hey megvana haposhut be'etzem rak shenim megvana hakeli. The oils are not changed, for they remain in their neutral color. Gvanu haposhut be'etzem. Okay, Gavan haposhut we did not really discuss very much, but we did point out that there is a phenomenal inyan in the fact that the water does not have any kind of definitive color, and therefore the color that is reflected in the water from the keli is totally pure. All right. Now, towards the end of that line, ukmoi oir hashemesh, which is also like the oir hashemesh, the sunlight. Shenire begavan haschuchis, that appears with gavan haschuchis, with the color of the glass. She'oiver al yodo, through which it passes. So when you put a colored glass against the sunlight, then the sunlight appears having the color of the glass. So there also, hare ha'oir be'etzem hu bigvane haposhut. The oil, in essence, remains bigvane haposhut in its Vari Haposhut means, I said, neutral color. Haposhut means all-encompassing color. The oil of the shemesh is not limited to one color or another color, and it can be appear any color that you want, because it itself really is Gvane Haposhut. In other words, it is above color. So this is another illustration of the principle that there is his lapshuls of the oil in a keli. So this second motion of the sun going through the zechuchis is even more expressive than in the case of the water in the keli. Because in the water in the keli, we had to go into all kinds of lengths to point out that there is really a significance and effect in the fact that the water appears in a certain color. But in itself, actually, it is something which doesn't affect anything. It is in the water itself. There is no extraneous effect of it. But when you talk about sunlight, sunlight has a very general function. It illuminates the entire world. So that the light that goes through the zechuchis, this colored glass, retains absolutely the entire function of sunlight, of illuminating the entire environment where it reaches. And in that process of illumination, it goes through this zechuchis, this glass, and now it illuminates it through the color of that glass, so that the effect of the glass is really very significant there. Because here it is, as I said, not like in the case of the water, where it just appears in a certain fashion. It actually illuminates that area in this color. In other words, the function of the sun is affected by this glass. It goes through this glass through these lapshuls. So, even here, even though the glass captures completely, so to speak, the functionality of the sun, the presence of the sun, yet still be saying that it is affected, but in essence it remains Vane Haposhut. What is the significance of the fact that it remains in the Gvane Haposhut? What this is saying is that even though now it goes through this color and it says this color, it cannot be said that the function of the sun, even on this stage, is to give this color out. No, the function of the sun is to give light on a fundamental light level. And here it gives it in a certain, with the effect of this zechuchis, in a certain color. But what is the primary function of this light? Is it to give the color, or is it to give light? It remains giving light. Although what you're seeing is entirely thoroughly affected by the color. which is called hislapshus in a keli, without being grasped by the keli. Because the functionality of the sun is not changed. It is to illuminate, not to give the color, but to illuminate, to make things visible. This is what we say. The oil in essence remains bigbane haposhut. It's all-encompassing gavan, and because of that, it can illuminate everywhere. It is not limited to illuminating one, in one manner or another. Ultimately, the principle in this is that everybody is called etzem ha'oir. In other words, if the oir were a limited quality, just a functional quality, then yes, indeed. If it is affected through a keli, then it becomes like the keli completely. It becomes defined and owned by the keli, nikna, so to speak, by the keli. But that's not what happens, because the oir has a supreme presence, an essential presence. So, okay, this is, notice on a scholarly level, the way it is discussed in Kabbalah, but we used a practical mashal, practical illustration, the way in our experience, where it becomes extremely significant simply on a human level to understand. Like we pointed out, no matter in what form a person acts, he never becomes that act. Even when a person walks, which is accomplished by moving one foot in front of the other, that is not what he's doing. Not only this is not in what he's doing in his mind, in his seichel, in his midas, in the feet. The feet also sense that they have a chayos beyond movement of the feet.
I don't understand what the feet sense.
The feet sense?
Yeah.
Do you have to tell your feet to move?
No.
Why not?
It just happens.
Huh?
When I want it, it happens. I don't have to.
How did it happen?
I'm not going to give the answer that I know is not true.
Of course not. Why should you give an answer that's not true? That's ingenious. How did you figure that one out?
Push it away.
How does it, you want to walk and the feet get up and start walking? How does that happen? If someone walks on stilts, is that going to happen the same way? Someone who uses a cane to assist in his walking, is the cane going to automatically move with him?
It's not going to automatically, yes.
Is there anything automatic at all? How does it happen in the feet?
It's connected to his.
No, I'm asking you to explain, but connected like that. You asked me how you don't understand what is sensitivity in the feet. So I'm showing you where you have sensitivity in the feet. The feet have the hislapshus ha-nefesh, and they sense what the nefesh wants. You understand it now?
Not really.
What do you mean not really? Why don't you understand?
I'm not sure what it means that the feet sense it.
I showed you what it means. The feet get up to walk without having to be told to. The cane does not.
Okay. I hear that it happens automatically.
So what don't you understand?
What it means that the feet sense it.
The feet. You mean where does the feet get this wisdom?
Yeah.
Then that's not what we're trying to understand. We have to say that the feet have it.
Okay.
Right? You have any problems with that?
No.
Okay, that's all. And when he gets it from the nefesh. And the nefesh is mislabish in the dots are nefesh mislabish in the feet. In the koiches and through the koiches. And that's what we're saying. Despite the fact that it's mislabish, he does not become limited to that function of walking. Because as a person walks, which is accomplished by moving one foot in front of the other, this is not what the feet are doing. The feet are actually going someplace, not just moving one foot in front of the other. There is an oyer and a shoma element in there. Okay, so let's go further. K'moi kein ha'oyer. So this is all a moshel for the way the oyer eliki l'maylo in atzilus. Ha'oyer hagam shebikli ha'chochma. Although but the oyer eliki, when it is in the kli ha'chochma, hu b'bchinas chochma, it actually has a quality of chochma. Ubikli ha'chesed, hu b'bchinas chesed. And then when it is mislabish in the kli ha'chesed, it has the quality of chesed. Kol mokoi, yet still be'etzem hu begavam poshut. In essence, it is in a gavam poshut. It is in a neutral and all-encompassing gavam color. Gam k'boi shehu b'tei hakli. Even in the state where the oil is inside the keli, it remains the gavam portion above keli. The oil, in essence, is not limited to chochma or chesed. Right. This principle already discussed. From every koyach, Chochma Bina Das or Chesed Gvura Tiferes, has an oyer and a keli. So, Chokhmah, I mean, Chokhmah in itself is very difficult to identify because none of us really focusing on that experience. So we always transfer to sight, which is identical to Chokhmah on a physical level. So we pointed out many times. Sight appears to happen effortlessly, without any effort, without any action on our part. And this is in fact the significance of sight, the significance of Chokhmah. Because once you have to employ your action in order to absorb something, you are limiting it, what you are seeing, to what you're able to absorb, what you're able to relate to. If this is something which you're seeing without any contribution on your own, means that you are actually relating and seeing the Ayin the way it is unto itself. This is the Ayin from Chokhmah. To seeing the truth the way it is, not the way it would make sense to me, the way I'm able to process it. This is Chokhmah and Bina. Bina is where you are able to, where you begin to process it on yourself, on your own. So this is the principle of sight, that you're actually seeing things, so to speak, the way they are without any contribution on your part. But there too, there is what's called the Keli, the Kli HaChokhmah. It is not the Oil HaNefesh per se, it is the Kli HaChokhmah. Let me step back a moment, let me see if we have the time. The reason that we are capable, there it is. The reason that we are capable of seeing and relating to things on a totally objective level, in their own turf, so to speak, not in a manner that how it affects us, which is through our own experience, our own process, but seeing things the way they are in truth. The reason we are capable of doing that is that, in fact, we have a nefesh that is at that level. A nefesh that is limitless, that is so to say pure truth in and of itself. If not for that, we would not be able to see this. Which means that this ability that is reflected in sight or reflected in Chokhmah is actually an Oyer HaNefesh that says, oh, it's there because it's there. I see it because it's there. I see the truth the way it is. Doesn't have to conform to any parameters that I present. So yes, indeed, that is where it is. But we have to understand, and this is a very little challenging, we are not looking at things with our nefesh. We are looking at things with our eyes. And our eyes are very focused. We only look in one direction, we cannot look in all directions at the same time. Which means that here, that level of the nefesh, which is of that pure state level that relates, so to speak, the truth to the way for the truth, Mepneshu Emes, is now concentrated and goes through a very narrow pathway. Which is called the eye, what is the center of the eye, the pupil. Yet still, as we have shown, even though it goes through the eye pupil, it is so defined and so limited. In essence, it is not limited at all. It touches to the essence of nefesh. Just one more word and then on. The interesting sensation of sight is that even though we are looking in one direction only, we can only look in one direction at a given time, but we're not seeing, we're not perceiving that all there is what I see. In this one direction, we are seeing the entire, we are actually seeing the whole thing through this one direction. So the sense of sight is that we see the reality of the world itself, not what I see. This is, that's it, I have to limit it. So that's it for today. Have a great day.